Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to those joining from overseas. Thank you for being with us here today for a virtual discussion on defining FM strategies in manufacturing facilities organized by Clean India Journal in association with Sodexo India. Over the last decade, there has been a major focus on FM in workplace well-being. With rapid changes at the manufacturing end, FM services is now gearing up to meet requirements of the manufacturing facilities. There's a major shift in the approach and processes of FM services delivery in the manufacturing spaces. Like to name some, we have the fixed budget service delivery, operational and service level agreements, AI and IoT interventions, leadership approach, and people management. The virtual discussion has three parts. We have a panel discussion, an interesting chat, and an interactive session of Q&A with delegates. Let me introduce you to our esteemed panel speakers here today. We have Atin Tandon, Cluster Director, Facility and REM Asia Pacific Tetra Pak. We have Amit Saxena, Director, Site Merck. We have Prabhu Ramachandran, CEO, Facilio. We have Sangeeta Ray, Vice President, Siemens Real Estate Asset Management Unit, India and Bangladesh. Leah Dango, Segment Head, Pharma and FMCG Corporate Services, Sodexo, India. Salil Lal, Vice President, Group IR and HR at Maruti Suzuki Limited. We have Shuprati Acharya, Chief Talent Officer, RPG Group, and Jai Shankar Rajamanikyam, Corporate EHS at Britannia Industries Limited. A very warm welcome to you all. Well, before we begin the panel discussion, let us familiarize what we have before us. We have the Q&A box, which will help the delegates to post their questions and interact with the speakers directly. And there'll be certain questions that will be replied in this box by the speakers, or the points will be taken inside the replies that they're giving to the questions during the panel discussion. Or we will also invite a few of you during the last session to take some questions live. So keep tuned here and keep an eye on the chat box to know what are the live updates that's happening in the webinar for your information. And the most interesting and important point is we will be having multiple polls coming your way during the discussions. Do participate and share your views on the questions that is being posted in the polls. So let's begin. Here we have the panel members, Atin Tandon, who will be moderating the session. We have Amit Saxena, Prabhu Ramachandran, Sangeeta Ray, and Leah Dango discussing the future of FM in manufacturing. Over to you, Atin.
Thanks, Mohana. Now, it's very good. You know, we have set the context quite nicely. And I think the way the facility management is transforming, and especially in the past decade, and the way, you know, things have been evolving during the pandemic, I think it's very, very relevant to have this conversation today. And thanks for inviting me, and really nice to be a part of this elite panel with all the experts around. So I'll quickly start, from this new novel concept, what we're talking about in the facility management thing, and a lot of organizations are talking about it. I saw, Karan also speaking about the same subject around back to office and stuff like that. So all the organizations have been taking a lot of initiatives around new normal. And there has been a lot of changes in the way things have been moving. So COVID-19 has been very challenging for us. We all know that. But we should also appreciate that as a community, we have really showed the resilience, and we have really delivered some exceptional results despite of the testing times. Now, as COVID-19 continues to impact the world and unsettle lives, we continue to learn new ways to live, work, communicate, and collaborate with each other. Now, during these testing times, the priority for all of us, in fact, was to protect ourselves, protect people around us, and being a facility manager, one of the key responsibility with us was to provide a safe and productive work environment to our colleagues so that we ensure business continuity. So now to ensure that we do that, we all implemented a lot of control measures which were deployed at our facilities, which were around social distancing. We were implementing temperature checks, enhanced hygiene levels. I think that's a very, very important perspective that is going to stay for long. Very close monitoring of health, using of PPEs, face masks, etc. Another very important step what we took in our facilities were developing some touchless interfaces. So, at Tetra Pak, we introduced a lot of touchless interfaces for our employees. Some examples I can talk about is we introduced some tea coffee dispensers, which were absolutely touchless in nature, touchless bins, all the dispensers, we all transformed to touchless dispensers, sensor controlled rows, visitor entry systems, which were completely touchless. So there were a lot of initiatives around it. From a manufacturing perspective, another concept what we introduced on our shop floors, especially was around micro teams. That's a concept. The objective of this specific concept was to minimize the possibility of transmitting of the virus within the operations. And again, the same objective was around to protect our people and operations itself. So the concept was initially, it came from the production team and we replicated it to all our support staff. Protecting mental health was another very, very important agenda for us. We all understand pandemic has been impacting adversely on the mental health. We started counseling of our teams and we also explored a lot of optimization opportunities. When I say optimization, there were different perspectives to it. Optimization of workplaces. Now, pandemic gave us an opportunity to relook at our workspace. At Tetra Pak, we have this activity-based working concept. That's our corporate strategy. But with inclusion of hybrid working, it gave us an opportunity to right-size our offices. Not only offices, but we also looked at optimizing our services because a lot of people were working from home. A lot of buildings were non-operational. So closing all those non-operational buildings, aligning all those services really helped us to strengthen our bottom line. We also extended support to all our colleagues who were working from home. We enabled hybrid working for them. A good thing for us was that we already had a lot of digital tools in place, which actually helped us to remain connected. And we also looked at other parameters like physical environment, ergonomic furniture, IT equipment, etc. We supported. So in principle, our focus was around protecting people and at the same time driving optimization. That was key for us. So optimization is again, very, very interesting subject. And now since on the panel, we have a lot of people, a lot of experts coming from manufacturing facilities. So I think it is good to get some reflections from them. Let me quickly go to Amit for some of his reflections, how things have been moving with him. Amit, how different is it, when it comes to optimization at multiple manufacturing facilities? If you could throw some light on that, how would you conclude the triggers of optimizations in the present context?
Thanks, Atin. I hope you can hear me well. So I think you've touched upon very beautifully how you are able to drive employee safety while taking care of business continuity at Tetra Pak. I'll just take one step further. I think two important factors which were very similar to what you did was, first was employee safety and second one was how to keep the business running. And why cost optimization? I think the first question which we should understand as a panel is why cost optimization? Why is the need? I think it is driven by market because we typically are governed by the market forces who define the target price for us. And basis the target price, the target cost is derived. So cost is fixed in the short term. And that's how budgets are calculated down. It's nothing new. And some of these expenditures which are there across facilities are, I would say, it's a combination of fixed and variable expenses. Approach which probably we have been taking, and I think this would be the norm going forward, is how do you make most of your fixed costs variable? Because no one had expected that something like this will no, occur in probably early 2019. But 2020, we all came to know about it. And you can't really prepare for these kind of pandemics. So this was a crisis situation which taught us two important things. Before I come to the drivers, one was in such a crisis situation, what we should focus on what is most important and prioritize, uh, set them in priority. So and when we start focusing on what is most important, then automatically your mind starts thinking on optimization. So coming to your question on how do you optimize across multiple facilities, I think each facility is different because in our case, for example, we have been running a specialty chemical facility. We are also running a OEM kind of facility where it's mainly assembly operations. So in an assembly operation facility, it's more about people because it's a semi-automated industry. In a facility which is, I would say, more automated, the focus is on, how do you reduce your depreciation? How do you maximize your volumes so that you can reduce your cost per unit, because the fixed cost component is on the higher side. So I think there were different levers which we had pulled, and I think which we'll keep pulling. One of the most important lever I would say is finding out redundancies in the processes across all processes, right from manufacturing to facility management, and making sure that how to automate those processes. So I would say we have been focusing on digitization to do process optimization. We have been focusing on robotic process automation to reduce the transactional load. And the third area was really looking at, making layout changes to make motion a little lesser, making sure that people who could work from home continued to work from home even after the lockdown was reduced or the situation improved. So those are some of the things which we did, because of which the whole idea was focus on what is most important and leave the rest aside. And as a result of that, the facility management team actually came into fore, and they started optimizing from there on. They started challenging each other that if we are having, say, 37 restrooms, do you really need them? As you said, people started coming in staggered shifts. We started, almost the entire industry started on micro teams. So with micro teams in place, do you really need so many facilities, or I would say restrooms? So those kind of optimization actually happened. So clearly, I would say 3 or 4 levers or triggers, as you said. One was the driving trigger was what is really needed. Second one was, redundant processes, both in transactions as well as in processes, were automated or would be automated going forward as well. That's a continuous journey. Third area was looking at implementing lean across the value chain, right from gate entry till the time a person enters inside, to material movement, to receipt, to dispatch, issuance, changing the layouts, reducing the motion. So I think these were 3 or 4 very, very key important drivers for making that shift or change. And we are also looking at how AI can help us, in finding out what we can do better. Voice operated bots, which are actually helping the warehousing team in doing the invoicing. So I think if you ask my opinion, I would say while people are important and very different kind of skill sets would be needed in this kind of environment, but way forward is AI, robotics, automation. And having said that, a different kind of facility management capabilities would be needed, probably more automation experts, more focus on predictive maintenance, etc. I think that is something which we can foresee right now, sitting here.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Amit, for some very good insights. I can easily resonate what you are talking about. We are almost on the same track. The key levers you spoke about: prioritization, obviously, digitalization, that's the future, and process automation. Absolutely aligned what you're saying. Thanks for your input, Amit. Let me quickly move to Sangeeta. Now, she's also coming from a similar background, and let's hear something from her. Slightly different perspective. So, Sangeeta, looking at it, from a larger perspective of managing the entire corporate real estate, what changes have you brought about in the outsource model? If you could share some reflection.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Atin. I think what is most important for us is to understand that, let's say my company is an engineering company, so our core is engineering. We do have a lot of wealth in the form of real estate, which we cannot keep on the side, which we cannot ignore from the balance sheet point of view. So maximizing the value of the real estate is very, very important to us. And at the same time, we don't want to become a real estate. Our intention currently is not to be a real estate company, but to continue to be an engineering company. So how do I balance out that I get the right quality of outlook on the real estate maintenance without compromising? That's where the FM piece comes in. I logically go to a specialist organization which is supposed to be eating, drinking, sleeping, and breathing FM, and bring them in to be able to manage our property in a far more professional way than what we would otherwise be able to do. Not only that, the second important part is if I have the multiple sites like the way I have, more than 35, 40 sites in India, factories and offices included, it would not be practical to build up the same level of real estate expert skills in all these offices. This is again where for me the FM plays a very active role, because they are an organization which are already having their skill levels spread across the cities and spread across. So depending on where I want to bring in the specialists, they are the guys who are going to be able to help me. So for me, in spite of us being manufacturing, in spite of us being having a high ownership ratio, the move towards FM is not a topic which is under discussion. The point is how fast, how much can I go towards FM. It's not FM anymore for me. It's integrated facility management for us in Siemens. Yeah, this is the most important thing. And why is it important? I think all of us before me have also spoken. We need flexibility. Where we used to be considered as a fixed cost, we now need as high a component of variability in it. And again, this is where an FM setup is what is going to help us become much more variable from the fixed component. Having said this, all this. Moving, gradually, in a place where, in a situation where we're gradually moving towards the new normal, as we all know, that means the post-pandemic period. The only thing I would want to add more to what we have said so far, we have been concentrating so far more on the employee experience part. Yeah, we have not, but actually, the employee experience part is the tip of the iceberg. There is 2/3 of that is the maintenance of the infrastructure part, which is completely below the sea, which is not seen. And that is where the expertise, while the employee experience is more on the top of the iceberg, the expertise is more required below. And that is where the maximum amount of automation and digitalization needs to be done. A simple example. I mean, we've had the pandemic for more than 18 months now, almost 2 years. Yeah. Have we been able to maintain the infrastructure without having sent our people on the site? If we have, that means we're on the right track. If we have had to keep our people within the premises to make sure that the electrical systems were running smoothly and the ACs didn't catch fire, obviously we have a lot to do. So from my point of view, the more we move towards concentrating, I mean, if we have to balance out the top of the iceberg and the bottom. The bottom is critical from the uptime and the production perspective, and the tip is what is critical from the employee experience. Merge the two, do our automation, digitalization, and go to experts to manage it, and we have the solution. And this is what we have been working in our blueprint, as far as my company is concerned.
Thanks, Sangeeta. Really appreciate your inputs there. Some very insightful comments around maximizing value when it comes to real estate, employee experience is obviously, one of the key components. But yes, whatever you said around digitization, I think that's the need of the hour, and that's the future when it comes to facilities management. We also have a expert with us on the panel, Prabhu, who's coming from the same industry. So Prabhu, a quick question to you. How digitalization is creating a vital link in the redefined facilities and leading to cost optimization.
Yeah, thanks, Satin. I will answer this more from not the current situation itself, but moving forward when things get better. What are the areas of cost optimization? Plus, I will also specifically talk about some aspects that are working, that are being adopted now. So, like other panelists pointed out, the broader areas are how do you automate, bring in process digitization, workforce efficiency, sustainability management. These are the areas. And we already are aware of technologies that are being deployed there. But on top of that, one trend that we are seeing is that more and more, how do we tech enable leadership? How do you bring leadership part of this whole cost optimization when it comes to property operations? When I say leadership, you're talking about like VP of operations, head of operations, even a C-level audience, because most of the digitization, the users, consumers have been technician, supervisors level. But the next value creation is when leaders have visibility across their portfolio. If there is a manufacturing facilities, in case of say Merck, they have several manufacturing facilities. How does the leadership get real-time visibility about across functions like workforce, energy management, process automation, across all these facilities? If the leadership is able to get visibility and visibility in real time at the right time, that actually creates a lot more impact, because there is a lot more focus on from leadership on what's going on. That is one. And the second trend we are observing is more and more organizations start moving to data-driven operations. Like how do they acquire data, look at data, learn from data across functions, data about your warehouse, data about your workforce, their efficiency, data about energy spend, equipment failures. So when these data is being acquired, put in use, used to learn, used to predict problems, that is where AI, machine learning comes into picture. So I would say these are two new avenues where organizations are getting better cost optimization. A, involving leadership as part of the whole technology use, and B, moving to a more data-driven predictive operations.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks so much, Prabhu. Very valid points you touched upon. Technical enabled leadership and data-driven operations. Obviously, that is about future. There's a lot of focus around it. Thanks for your inputs. Moving on to we also have Leah with us. So Leah, Prabhu talked about digitalization, technology. We have been talking about facilities management. Now, from your perspective, with technology at the core, what is the kind of spend do you foresee in preparing human resources to meet customer requirements?
Right. Thank you, Amit. A very relevant question. We see a lot of significant investment in spend in this space now. Let me give you an example of what we do back home, right? So we've moved from this very traditional classroom orientation kind of based training to a QR code-based software framework and training framework. Now, the content of this is developed by our SMEs that exactly can deliver to the training needs of our employees. It's extremely simple, illustrative, and available in 16 different languages. Change management is absolutely hassle-free. Now, at sites where this has been developed, we've seen a marked improvement in the productivity and motivation levels of our employees, because today, vis-a-vis we imparting training or knowledge to them, they've acquired the skill on their own. So in effect, we've created this super agile learning ecosystem that allows to train and retrain employees on the go. In a sense, what I would believe in this technological era, we would have to focus in terms of the methodology and the content in which we would have to impart this knowledge to upgrade and upskill our workforce.
Thanks, Leah. Very, very valid points you talked about. So, if I have to sum up, whatever inputs and reflections coming from different panelists, I think we are more into discussing the sort of outsourced model, what is prevailing right now and how it's going to evolve, in the future. So moving from a fixed budget or a headcount-based sort of model, or how things are evolving, when it comes to facilities management and, this outsourcing model. I can just quickly reflect in terms of, the outsourcing model. And now since we are focusing on manufacturing facilities, I think it will be very relevant for me to, share with you, what we are doing at Tetra Pak. So at Tetra Pak, we have a very unique outcome-based vested contract in place. So vested is sort of new concept, a lot of service providers are talking about vested contracts these days. It's a sort of new approach, new methodology, and it is also considered to be a game changer. It's picking up quite today, and we at Tetra Pak have been following it very well. It's basically aligned with the win-win thinking concept, and it's centered around buying results instead of tasks or activities. So the focus is on outcomes instead of transactions, and it purely fosters innovations and collaboration. So what we are following today is, we have a total cost of ownership concept where we have an agreed on a fixed cost. And on top of that, we have an agreed, for a savings glide path that helps us achieve sustainable savings over a period of time without compromising on the quality of deliverables. So that's the very, very important perspective. So it's very obvious that, different businesses have different drivers, and that defines the directions, in terms of how we want to structure our outsourcing contracts. But organizations are looking towards fixed pricing, and it is obviously helping them, sort of go and get away with sort of ambiguities around pricing and other stuff. So again, very interesting in terms of how this outsourcing model is going to evolve in future. Let's hear, from some of our panelists here, how they look at it. So let me quickly go to Sangeeta first. Sangeeta, now you have engaged Sodexo, and what model works best, and how do you see in future how it is going to develop?
So even with Sodexo, we started off first on a manpower-based solution, as in a couple of sites we experimented that. But that meant that the entire project management and the expertise we still had to retain. So at some point of time, around 2 years back, we decided on moving towards an integrated facility management solution, where we moved away from the manpower-based solution, and we started talking in terms of your deliverables are A, B, and C, uptime and quality, etc. So we don't see ourselves going 2 steps back at all. So as we go forward, we expect that we would be more and more heading as a setup towards an integrated based, fixed price based facility management solution, where we would expect the expertise from Sodexo and other service providers to decide how to bring in the automation and how to lean out the employee part of it without getting into behind the scene, because we believe that is the group with so many organization expertise should be able to guide the topic the best, rather than we start, interfering and trying to give the inputs, because then we would have sabotaged the entire integrated facility management process. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sangeeta. Yeah, thank you. Very, very relevant. I can easily resonate. Sorry for interrupting.
I request all the speakers to even look at the Q&A box. A lot of questions coming up. I think, Prabhu, a lot of technology questions also. Please answer the questions there as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohana. Yeah. Thanks, Sangeeta, for your inputs. Let me go to Amit for the next reflection. Amit, Most workspaces, have moved into a hybrid model, as we speak about earlier as well. When it comes to manufacturing, what do you perceive, will be the future?
I think it's a great question, and I think future would be based on a couple of things. So there is this integrated facility model, which is I would say a buzzword right now, where people are talking about one single player, multiple things under one umbrella. There are benefits and I would say pros and cons both to it. Uh, Facility management is a matter of expertise now. It's a matter of mastery of various areas. To give you an example, for example, running a canteen inside a facility versus hard services like maintenance are two different ball games. Now, if there is and as organization, we would like to have one single face who can manage this for us. So I think facility management has to evolve. If they have to really manage a facility, they need to become experts in all these areas, different facets of facility, which starts from hard services like air conditioning maintenance to soft services like food preparation. Right. So that is one. So I think one trend which I can clearly see is expertise in all areas of facility management going forward to enable single phase of facility manager or facility management experts for organizations like us who are focused on core manufacturing, for example. So that is the first trend or future which I see, and that I would say that's a strong question to the facility experts, that can you take care of all of this? Earlier we used to say jack of all trades and master of one, but in case of facility management, it would be jack of all trades in facility and master of all trades in facility. So that's I would say the trend which is going to be there, and facility management service providers have to be ready for it. Right. One common mistake which people are doing is, okay, I want my warehouse to be outsourced. Let's get one facility management company and outsource it to them, and they will say, oh, you have an existing player who's already doing it. Let me take that player into my umbrella and I'll be the single face. It works well on paper, but I call it as watermelon effect, right? The metrics look green outside, but inside is all red. So sorry, I'm touching this because this is important, because that's the way forward. And I would urge the facility management companies to actually look into it, treat it very, very seriously, because that's the trend. And I'm really passionate about it. Second trend which I see, it is going to come in 5 years from now, we'll see it. There are, in facility management, there are a lot of redundant activities. Automation is the answer, but automation alone cannot be the answer. So automation combined with something what our friend just said on predictive maintenance, how do we take that data? How can we predict what is going to fail so that the facility continues, right? The continuity of facility and providing same service, same experience to the customers day in and day out, that needs a health check. So an online health check monitoring system, which can keep the facility running, that's the way forward, which means that the skill sets which are required, which I think you are going to talk about in the next session, what are those skill sets which are going to be required? They will not be normal skill sets which we see in the current facility management team. They would be very, very different skill sets. So I think those are my thoughts around it, Atin. And thanks for asking that good question.
Thank you, Amit. And, I really reflect, what you're saying, I totally resonate, and that point you made, jack of all and masters of all, they really need to command everything. They need to be experts in everything. And that's the only way out where you can deliver a very seamless service delivery. I totally understand. And yes, again, coming to digitalization, tools, apps, what are being currently deployed, and, you will see a different set of, sets coming in. plus the reskilling. Obviously the manpower today, what we have at sites, they really need to be skilled to handle those digital tools so that they are utilized in the right perspective. Predictive maintenance, I agree, that's a different ball game, and industry really needs to be matured enough to, move in that direction when it comes to, from a preventive maintenance to predictive maintenance. Totally agree. Let me quickly move to Prabhu, again, since we are talking about digitalization apps. So Prabhu, definitely, mobile apps and software are already there in most manufacturing facilities. What is new in technology space to enhance engagement with people, customers, and interdepartmental processes in multiple manufacturing facilities? If you could throw some light on that.
Yeah. So some of the trends here is that particularly from customers who own a vast set of properties that are geographically distributed, the trend is to bring in portfolio-wide deployments. Okay, there are so many siloed tools sitting in each of these properties. They might have a different tool to solve the same problem, but how do you bring all these data? How do you centralize? How do you run procedures across your properties? Say, for example, if you look at energy management, if there is a real-time view about I have 20 warehouses, what is the per square feet or what is the per manufacturing output based energy consumption for each of these, then they are able to see what are the best performing properties, what are the properties which requires changes. Okay? Same with case of predictive maintenance. So the new trend is scaling these digital platforms to across portfolio so that you are able to acquire data, compare, contrast, improve from your processes. So that this is called as data-driven portfolio-wide operations. And the other trends are gradually more and more AI, machine learning are coming in, although at a much slower phase because practically you need few years of data to do this. But as a next step, once you have portfolio-wide functions established, digitization as the base, then customers are looking at how can we use the data to learn patterns so that we are able to optimize our systems.
Thanks, Prabhu. Listening to you, I can only make a comment. Future is certainly exciting with all these technology coming into picture. Let me quickly ask a question to Leah. Leah, there definitely is an increase in spending. We're talking about digital tools, technologies, apps. Obviously, the spending is going to increase. What, according to you, is the new benchmark for spend?
Right. I think from a benchmark perspective, let me just delve upon certain aspects or give a few examples, right? 5 years ago, we were very happy with ride-on sweepers, and today we have robotics scrubbers, right? Zoom into the situations where we had, expert or critical skill sets that we hired in engineering to manage breakdown assistance, troubleshooting, or various other issues, connections with OEM networks. Today, we have smart glass technology that allows you to, piggyback on a pool of SMEs or critical resources that are staying probably 1,000 miles away from your site and render expertise and guidance to an on-site engineer to troubleshoot or fix an issue. And that's really evolving into how can we build on-site, on-job inductions, right? Let's look at smaller, menial, ordinary, but very critical tasks, right? Janitorial services. We decided a few years ago that, if we gave him a set of tools, right equipment, certain products, we would be taken care of. But what really happened with the idle time? What really happened in the non-value addition tasks that probably this janitor would do? So in a sense, if you look at these three examples, right, from complex to critical, yet basic tasks in facility management, we're talking about a more leaner, a more smarter, and a much more improvised version of the IFM model at the sites. And really, in a sense, from a manufacturing perspective, what I really believe, it's going to be the right balance and the mix of technology, of right skill sets, And, anything that enhances productivity and efficiency with the right ROI, in a sense, is where the spend is going to be. Because from manufacturing parlance, the triggers for spend is always going to be dependent about what's in it for me, right? And that's where I think, it's going to be a mix of all these three elements: right skill, right technology, in a sense, to deliver to the spend area. That's what's really going to interest organizations.
Great, thanks. Thanks for the inputs, Leah. I totally agree. Spends will all be linked to ROIs. What value we are creating, for the organizations, and obviously leaner organizations. We are already there, and we will further, move in the same direction. Thanks for your inputs, Leah. Very, very good inputs. Thank you, everyone. Over to Mohana, please.
Thank you, Atin, and thank you for the entire panel. This has been a real interesting session, and I think some of the very core and pertinent points which each one of them in the FM space identified with has been brought forth. And yes, we will continue this debate. So those who have joined late, I would like to inform you that we're going to have a very interactive session towards the end of the next session. So let's move on to leadership and people management. Yes, people are the core to any business, and today their well-being is all the more pronounced for businesses to continue operations. If they are safe, the production facility is on. So hygiene, another aspect which has been a core important factor for facilities to operate without any stoppage, has now become a subject not just of the FM, but it has percolated down to departments like you have the HR, the IR, the EHS, and so on. So centric to everything is the people and their well-being. So we have today with us some very highly experienced professionals in the environment, health and safety space, industrial relations, human relations, who are going to share with us the leadership traits in people management. Let me welcome Salil Lal, Supratik Bhattacharya, and Jai Shankar Rajamanikam. Over to you, Supratik.
Mohana, good afternoon. Good afternoon, all of you. As Mohana said, my name is Supratik. I work for a company called the RPG Group. And Mohana, thank you very much for setting the context. If your organizations are one of those rare ones who believe that you are what you are because of your people, then it's perhaps a good time to note that people behavior has started to change very, very significantly. The way we work has changed, the way we socialize has changed, the way our social behavior has changed, our patterns are changing, right? When the first wave came, that was last year, when we're in a hurry in closing down our offices. We're trying to sort of figure out how do we keep our people safe. Many of you spoke in terms of how we provide safe workplaces. We figured out very, very quickly that there is probably no other time to stand by your people more strongly than now. And that's what actually sort of, over the last 15 months, and I'll just take you through a couple of things that we've done in the essence of time. I'll just go very, very quickly. And when the second wave came, it was something a lot more real. Like it was very close. Almost all of us in some form or the other, we had either touched it or we had seen it from very close, right? 15 months it's been, and when I look back, and I think every organization, every HR department or every organization faced with two core challenges. Challenge one was, how do I ensure the now of everything? How do I ensure that, as one of you talked about, BCP, the business continuity process. And the second was, how do I facilitate the creation of a future-ready organization? Right? And these are the two things that we've kind of, I'll just take off that. We've been focusing in terms of how do we create these two things, right? Now, a couple of things that we did from our side was we focused on creating a connect with our people, right? And somehow when I look back and I see this with a little bit of a pride that, it's not just us, I'm sure that many of your organizations would have done that. And many of us actually have created a connect far stronger than we would have created in the other times of the other times. Somehow we got very good at creating that connect, right? Now, for example, we could see that the way we are working was changing. Everybody was not moving out of their houses, huge impact on our health. So we've got a CFO in the organization, right? And the CFO is not the usual chief financial officer like all of us have. The CFO for us is the chief fitness officer. And this chief fitness officer, I've actually seen her with her team with a huge amount of passion connecting with every employee. And market, we've got about more than 30,000 people across the globe. And that started showing its effect, right? We could see blurred boundaries at home because there were no time for Zoom calls, no time for calls, etc. So we took a step back and say, hey, what's happening? What are we all doing? So we, there was that was a huge, people are going through a huge problem. For example, in a place like Bombay, and Bombay is not known to be kind enough to offer huge houses to many people. So at any point of time, you would have about 2, 4, 5 people working from the same house. It's a small house. And that's not a less stress on your part, right? So we could see this showing in different ways. So on one hand, we said that, look, we've got this counseling organization tied up with the psychology counseling organization. And we said that anybody who wants to talk to them, just go ahead and speak. And it's completely, we don't need to know who's gone there. But the other things that what we've done is we took a step back and said that, look, this just can't go on. So we said that we actually issued guidelines to our people saying that we don't expect you to be available to people before 9:30 in the morning and maybe around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. We know that you are at home, so therefore 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we are calling it a blank hour, and we don't call people. Of course, if there's a fire, there's an emergency, different things, right? So these are some of the things that we started doing, and it kind of started showing a lot of impact on our people. On the other side, what we started doing was working on mindsets of people, because last year, around June or July, when the government has started allowing people to trickle back to their offices, when it was 30%, 40%, etc. And I know of organizations when you got 80% of their workforce back to the office. Till date, we haven't gone back to the office. I work in Bombay. And right now I've dialed in from Delhi because August onwards, I've been sitting in Delhi, I'm working from it. So, the mindset change was very essential. All of our leaders, we are talking to them, telling them that, look, things are happening fine. And what happened at the end of the year, I'm happy to tell you that, our organizations have kind of outperformed all of them. Of course, the business has been doing very well. Salim, what do you think is some of the things that your organization has done? And maybe then we can go to Jaishankar.
Yeah, thank you, Supratik. And good to hear some of the concepts which you talked about. Nevertheless, let me just give you the glimpse of how did we handle and the way we were approaching the whole subject. And for the discussion today, what I have done is that I have divided the whole thing into 3 parts. One, of course, was the crisis which we were all into, and we're trying to handle it. The first phase obviously was more in terms of preventive, but then there are a lot of learnings for us, especially starting from the point of designing the SOPs for the employees. And SOP does not mean that it starts the way or the time when you decide to start working, but then it has to be something which has to be planned much in advance. And then for a manufacturing industry, especially that too for a continuous conveyorized operation, it's not a normal switch on, switch off. So you need to plan certain things, especially the first phase of the pandemic, the last year which we witnessed was more in terms of preventive situation, where if you were into a given situation, you were trying to prevent the outbreak. So obviously the SOPs were designed in such a way that the moment the lockdown is over, you start calling people in a phased manner. Then you start looking in terms of the facility, this convenience which everyone would require. And that convenience was critically designed in the sense that starting from the pickup point of a person, the moment he boards a transport or a bus to the company, to the factory, and then how would he enter the premises, how would he operate a machine, how would he or she would utilize the facilities and go back home. So that was something which was well thought about. A lot of kaizens, a lot of process improvement, a lot of changes were done inside the plant also. Ultimately, the vehicle has to be produced. It cannot be done in isolation. It cannot be done from a remote operation. But then nevertheless, everything was designed in such a way that you still maintain social distancing and produce vehicle. Second part was the medical facility, because a lot of emphasis was given on the medical facility, a lot of emphasis was given on the well-being of the employees, and especially when we were into the second phase, which was much more severe. And I would not call it severe because it was sudden, it was intense, and there was no reaction time. In the first phase, we did not lose our people, but in the second phase, we certainly had fatalities inside the plant also. So that was something which was creating a lot of fear amongst the employees. The new age workforce was to be handled in a separate manner altogether. So again, the focus immediately shifted in the second phase to manage the whole crisis in such a way that you are well equipped with your medical facility, the medical team, the infrastructure, the support services, right from handling medical beds, providing oxygen concentrators to our employees, picking up from all across the world, that too in a very short time, and then arranging ICU beds, oxygen cylinders and everything. And not only that, augment your medical team by getting more doctors, improve the infrastructure of the dispensaries inside the plant, and then also providing certain help to the employees by with online services. So that was something which again was very rapid and something which had to be done quickly. Without losing time, we got into the act, designed everything, procured everything, built up this infrastructure so that we are able to help our people. And today, now that things are improving, and on top of that, there was a business call which was taken. And the business call was to shut down the plant to break the chain. Again, there are many stakeholders, there are employees, there are both white collar, blue collar employees, there are unions, but then everybody had to be brought on one table to understand that this is the need of the hour. So even in terms of the facilities which we have inside the plant, whether it is the cafeteria or for that matter, the dispensary, the control, everything was redesigned, including the food which you serve inside the plant. That itself underwent certain changes. So, and the last thing which I thought I must touch upon was handling the emotional issues of employees, handling the new age workforce. Still, they have to be kept motivated, they have to be kept engaged, they have to be kept fully charged. So even from a distance, there were certain issues which were handled, both which were strategic in nature. The level of involvement was increased. At the same time, there was a feeling within the youngsters, especially that they are involved in the process, and the outcome was something which is a joint effort for everyone. So these were some of my initial thoughts.
Great. Thank you so much, Salil. Jaishankar, would you like to share your views? Yeah.
Good afternoon, all. So it was a quite interesting discussions we are having, and many of the points have been covered by Salil. So what, I would say that in terms of people perspective, it's about the leadership. The agile leadership is something which I could see in all the sectors, I would say, because I'm in touch with my peers in different corporates as senior leaders. So I think that every corporate has responded very well in this current situation. And I would like to share like how we looked at COVID or the current situation to ensure business continuity. And in terms of the risks and the opportunities is something which we have foreseen it. Right from, people are the most important thing. And we all know, it's a beat the dearth of professionals or the paramedics or even the support staffs, and everybody is important in this space. And what as an organization, what we did was like we balanced out in all possible ways. So just to give an example, we leveraged on technology, right? In all our manufacturing units, I would say all the 16 manufacturing units, we leveraged on CCTV. Since we are in the food sector, in that space, so we have cameras to monitor and other things in most of the core areas. So we utilize that those cameras to monitor people who are close to each other in terms of social distancing. It will pick the number. If they are having a mask below the nose, it will pick that photograph. And we had a TV next to that area and a hooter, which will just kind of make them aware that you are close to each other. If somebody is close to more than 30 seconds, then it will pick that thing as an opportunity. So we saw the numbers very high initially, and there was a downtrend. You cannot eliminate it to zero, because it's practically impossible in a manufacturing setup to not to allow two people to be together. So from that point, and then we also introduce barrier controls where there are no possibility of two people, they might come without their knowledge. So for that, we introduce some barriers, simple barriers. It can be a flex board barrier or anything in a neatly designed manner, so that they are not in close contact with each other. Those things we did. Being in the food space, sanitization is something which is there time and again. I would say it was there from ages, but we increase the frequency part of it, right? Whether it is the vehicle sanitization, I'm talking about even the trucks which comes inside, or the buses which transport the employees, right? We adjusted ourselves to the changing situation, right? And also the attendance system that we had, right? We used to have the biometric attendance system, which was removed, and we had the touch-free attendance system. Temperature sensing using the guns we used to have, the scanner guns, we removed it, and we had that, the thermal sensors which used to capture it. And and there was a challenges in that, right? I would say that some temperatures were high, then we need to send them to the dispensary. Strengthening our medical centers, right? Each factory used to have a medical center, paramedical staffs. All these things were taken care in a I would say in a broader perspective. Plus, we also had that biggest challenge which we faced is upgrading our network, the bandwidth, the speed of it. So those are the challenges we faced as we were implementing it. We found that, this, the Mbps of speed which we have is not sufficient to cater to this. Then quickly we need to go to a different plan. Okay, those are the things which helped us in terms of, even in the wave 2, we are not much in fact impacted because of the wave 1. And technically we operated all the days, right? I wouldn't say that I couldn't. There are 1 or 2 situations where the government, they insisted few things to sanitize and we had to do an intermittent stoppage, but otherwise we are operating continuously, ever since the pandemic started. So there is no business interruption, I would say, from that perspective. And being in EHS space, right, whether it is water or energy or people safety, we have in all our factories, we have behavior tunnels where there are touch points where it talks about emotional, behavioral and intellectual stuff. We have audio, video, visuals. So people, we keep sensitizing them on the situations to give the assurance. And one thing which was really good, which we saw was, people never feared to come to the factory, right? At least our employees, we didn't have, there were a few challenges in some situations, but by and large, people were coming forward because they were more, things were more assuring for them in the workplace, right? Because they know that in this company, there are touch-free hand sanitization thing available. They are seeing visibly the leadership, driving things. If somebody is sick, we tell them you go home and take rest, and the management accommodated it. If somebody is not well, even that, monitoring them till they recover back. All those things were done as a continuous process. And when it comes to facility management, as a company, we have the core manufacturing. We have the certain things like the sanitization and hygiene facility is separate. So those things are there for time and in long period of time. We have bifurcated it, and those are managed very well because we have to focus on the core, and the other part of it is something which we have already outsourced, and they were also supporting us really well. Just a last point which I wanted to say is, there are a lot of points which I can share. One of the thing is, we started finding local vendors because the challenges we had is, having specialists coming from a different state or from a different district, some imported parts, those are the things we try to identify the critical spares and critical resources. How do we ensure that locally these are available and we can engage them quickly? So, and then moving forward, also we have a foresightedness in terms of looking at mechanical integrity. Things should not go wrong. We have seen some instances in few industries, things going wrong, and so we are now preparing ourselves in terms of how we can ensure that critical areas are monitored more closely. And we are going to use the existing CCTV analytics and other things, even to monitor the fire extinguishers and few unsafe things and other things. So that's something which is a strength for us. I look forward for more questions, if any, I could take up.
Right, Mohana, how are we doing on time? Do we have any further time, or do you want us to wrap up?
If you can have the quick round. Actually, what is most important is we want to hear from you. If you have to add something more to leadership, of course, we have been talking of ethos and pathos all this while. If you have to add 3 more points as 3 pillars in the coming future, what would you add in the leadership in people management?
I will take this question. See, agile leadership, we need to be change to the changing situation. We should be ready, and we cannot keep one stance and we cannot stick to that. We keep seeing that time and again, and there is a flexibility on budget which also need to be looked at, and the same thing need to be managed in some other area where we could, kind of make some savings on it. So this is something which look, and in this pandemic, what we really understood is the skill is another area where we need to quickly upskill them. How can we do the quick upskilling? How can we do the shadowing? Right? How can you use the digital space to upskill themselves? These are the things which I would say as a trait. Understanding what is the need of the hour and quickly understand and changing ourselves. That agility is what I would say as an important trait, and I think we got that kind of a support.
Right. What is
Mohana,
your? Yes.
I would like to just add to what.
Amit, I'll come to you. Just give me a minute. Let me finish with Pratik and Shalil. What they are thinking is the 3 points that has moving forward in the leadership of people management.
Anna, first of all, I'll attempt this question in a different way. That involve your team, involve your people at the strategic level. This is something which the new age workforce is looking at. They are very active, they are very energetic, and they need involvement at a different platform altogether. Secondly, they need direction. They need support. They need direction, they need support. And the third is give them the flexibility. Flexibility to operate, flexibility of time. So the hybrid model which we are talking about has now become the order of the day.
Great. Yes, Pratik.
My point of view is, if you're looking at what kind of new leadership are we looking at, clearly somebody, a leader who thinks about tomorrow, because things are changing. Like, it's important for us to see what are the game changers that's going to be for tomorrow. Somebody who can look forward, who's innovative and thinks. That's the kind of leadership that we're looking at. Second, very important is we're looking at somebody more compassionate leadership, more empathic leadership. That's something that we're looking at. And third is somebody who's adaptive leadership. We have to move away from anything else to adaptive leadership. We've got to adapt, right? So that's the kind of 3 leadership patterns that we're looking for.
Wonderful. Amazing. I should say, these has been some amazing thoughts that you all have been adding to, and I'm sure there's a lot to learn from you all here today. I would like to add, Amit, you wanted to say something here. I would like to take that point of view. So what is it that you think should come up in the leadership?
I'll just summarize it in 4 letters.
Yes.
EEAD. Yeah. E is ears on the ground, eyes on the horizon or the vision, where you have to have co-create the vision along with the team. A is arms around the team, which is around empathy, which Supratik said, right? And D is decisiveness, speed of decision making. I think that is what is needed in these times. So EEAD would be my mantra. I have just summarized what the leaders said. Thanks a lot.
Beautiful, Amit. Very, very concisely, and given a short-term EEAD, superb. That's very nice. I think the people around are also in the delegates are giving you accolades of a superb. It's nice to hear this from even the young generation that is coming up on leadership. Yes, and as we move forward, I think let's open the forum. Let's have all the panelists on the floor. Moving, yes, let's have some challenging questions coming up. We have been talking of cost optimization. We have been talking as cost. So what is it? Let me throw this question to Atin. We have always said that we should reduce costs. We should, be cost effective. But when it comes to determining the factor of engaging with service providers, why is it that a contract is signed only if it is a low cost? Why is that trend still pertinent when we know today service providers are going to take your organization or your factories to an operational level? Why? Atin?
My views on this is, I already spoke about, the contract what we have. And my view is, cost, I don't look at it as cost optimization. My view on this is driving more innovation around it, having solutions which are more efficient and which could give us long-term sustainable savings plus some value additions in terms of efficiency. So it is not about cost, it is about structuring it in the right perspective so that we can drive innovation, we can drive efficiencies, and in the long term, it will by default give you savings, and companies will be able to drive savings and efficiencies around it. So that's how I perceive it. Yeah.
I hope everybody thinks on the same lines. So this is a message to all the customers there out there listening, that we need to focus more on how innovative and quality-driven services that is coming your way. Yes, I'm moving to Sangeeta with this question. Yes, you were talking about newer technologies, talking about the worth the spend, because that is what is the future. But when it comes to outsourcing the service provider, what is the cost factor that you're going to see? Are you going to see how technologically driven services they are given, or how much is the cost that is going to go down? Will I call it investment or a spend? Is up to you.
Thanks for asking this question, but I'm also going to take into this question some of the questions which came up in the Q&A and combine it with the answer. Yeah, cost is not something to be seen as the paint on the surface of the cube. Yeah, it is only the last piece of the cube. It's just what you see, nothing else. Yeah. And here, Karan, please don't negotiate with me when I come back onto the negotiation table. But as occupiers, we also have to be, we are also responsible to ensure that when the investment that we are making in our infrastructure is a smart investment. If we do that, then Prabhu gets the advantage of building the IoT solutions on top of that, and Sodexo and all other service providers are going to be able to benefit from it. I come back to my iceberg theory, where I say 2/3 of my iceberg is below the water, which is getting completely ignored, and only 1/3 is what people are talking about. Cost is not important in an isolated way. Cost is only as important or not important as the piece of cube it is finally covering. Yeah, this is the message I want to give. And in the same spirit, there was a question on hybrid. The way we have to look at cost is put our assets on, manufacturing own or lease, office own or lease, etc. Make your X by Y, age, etc. Decide where your real estate is sitting, and based on that, pitch whether it is cost or pitch whether it is going to be enhancement of infrastructure. There is no cost without enhancement of infrastructure. So this is the only message I want to. Don't look at cost in an isolation. Please look at the big picture. This is my message. With this, I will, of course, continue to negotiate with my FM service providers. Yeah,
the negotiation still continues, even though you're saying these points. That's fair. Let us take Leah's views here. Leah, tell me, do you agree that it is always, technology and quality-driven services is the determining criteria when contracts are closed?
Yes, it's become one of the most important criteria, because I think today clients are leaning on experts like us to help them, deliver on technology and deliver in terms of seamless, innovative, interconnected interventions that are going to help them deliver on quality and cost. So I think it's very important from that perspective. For me, the ability of the service provider in terms of delivering the right mix of technology, whilst keeping sustainability and diversity at the center stage, and putting this in the hands of the most upskilled manpower, would be the best and the most efficient way to deliver services. So I think that would sum up what we would stand for as an organization also.
Interesting. It is nice to hear a service provider talking about this. This is a message that goes out to all service providers, that yes, they have to attune themselves to the present requirement, and what the customers need today is technology, is digitalization. Yes, can we have a gentleman from Pfizer who has put a wonderful question up there in the Q&A box? While they are bringing them in, Amit, would you like to take the question from...
Yeah, hi panel, good evening. So I had a lot of doubt regarding the optimization, automation, then deliverables of SLA, but listening to all of you, I got clarified, and there is a lot of scope, and I feel that there should be a kind of formal or informal online courses for that, because FM is a kind of sector we have yet to explore. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, that was one view that came in, that we need to have some formalized training. I think Sodexo has got some trainings that is happening for where people want to join. Thank you, Chandrasekhar. Yes, Leah, would you like to talk about training, reskilling? What is happening at your end?
Absolutely. I mean, coming back to the point that we made, we are making the right and relevant investments in the training. Like we said, it's going to be a more agile ecosystem of learning where we are empowering our employees to take trainings on the go. You know, the content that we are offering in terms of the training is coming from inputs from global SMEs, from country SMEs, from industry experts, where they can enhance their knowledge. So I think that's a great match to have. And it's really exposing the blue collar workforce to greater technological advancements, right? So I think that in all sums the efforts that we're putting, and it's going to be evolving. It's going to be evolving based on the business needs, based on the situations that we see. So I think it's never going to be static, and we're just going to improve year on.
Great, great. Amit, I would like to ask you this question on, moving from the hybrid, or rather moving from the present scenario to the hybrid service model. People have been talking about it, and people are trying to implement it as well. How practical is it actually? Please unmute yourself.
See, again, there are three aspects to it. One is, would we want all services under one umbrella? I think I gave my views. It can have a watermelon effect if it is not done rightly. It has to be done in phases. And as manufacturers or as organizations, we also have to be mindful of I would say, a glide path of with working in, I would say, strong partnership with the IFM service provider. We need to understand what their strengths are. And if we want to go ahead with a particular service provider, then it has to be a long-term plan. It cannot be a 3-year, 2-year contract, because you don't get anything out of it, right? Why I don't get a value out of it, the service provider also doesn't get any benefit, right? So it has to be a phased out plan. It is the need of the hour. And we would love to have all services under one umbrella, right? One person accountable and responsible for all facility management. But it has to be phased out, I would say. And because if we do it too early, there are a lot of risks. There are a lot of hidden costs, as Sangeeta ma'am said, iceberg that is there. There are a lot of hidden costs of reliability, which come to the fore when you outsource, weak areas to a partner. So my view is that on the first part of it. Second part is on the automation. And someone raised a question on sustainability. Huge amount of focus is there on sustainability, not only I would say from a CSR perspective, but also I would say from a cost optimization perspective. I can foresee in next 5 years, IFM providers would be coming to customers with a bouquet of services saying that we can provide you waterless systems. We can provide you a sustainable solution, right? So see, the basics of quality and I would say a fixed cost model, they are given. How as an organization, how do I make a decision whether I should go with IFM1 or IFM2? So that is where I think differentiation will happen. That who can provide more automated services, who can take care of my energy efficiency, work on sustainability with us, understands the values which my company stands for, and how do you integrate well. So I think those are the areas, and the way I see this coming up is IFMs, they will have to transform themselves. They are already transforming. There is a lot of automation which Sodexo is, for example, doing. We are working very closely with them on a lot of areas right now, but I think there is still a lot of distance to be covered.
Great. That's fantastic. Can we have Sangeeta what I wanted to understand is you have introduced a lot of technology, and this is open to Prabhu as well. What is it that we really need to focus on initially in any facility, which will actually help the facility management company to perform better? This is open to both Sangeeta and Prabhu.
I can talk about what we have done. So Prabhu can add on what the potentials are. So what we are doing today, or what we have done today, is in the same spirit of the master plan or the blueprint for equipments. Every time we have done a life cycle replacement, we have not only gone for a more, of course, efficient technology, that is a given, but we've also gone for a technology which can go digital seamlessly. This means that we don't have to keep a special effort there to, go for the digitalization piece. And the best fruit that my team has got as a result of this was that even in the first phase of lockdown, when there was a complete shut off, all the below the water ice part of the iceberg was completely monitored from the residences of my various employees, whether it was the security or remote security management, or it was the infrastructure or the solar power management. Everything was done, and this is possible because the life cycle piece came in. Yeah, offices were closed, so we didn't have to do much there. So message here is, when you're doing the life cycle replacement, bring in smart and efficient technology, because then you get the sustainability piece answered and you get the future digital piece answered. That again helps. And when you talk about skilling of the IFM, this is where you're not looking at skilled IFM alone. You're looking at skilled IFM who can then handle these kind of technologies. And then Prabhu comes in with this data point, because then it helps us know exactly where to attack. Otherwise, we would be working with data points, but we would have forgotten that we have an inefficient solution at the back end. Yeah, this is from the user point of view. Prabhu, over to you.
Yeah, great point. Right. So adding on top of what Sangeeta said, when it comes to operations of real estate, right, we have a lot of low-hanging problems that we can go and solve, and the value creation from them is very, very high. Technology is already matured and available vastly from other adjacent markets. Before even we go to, say, AI or machine learning based technologies, digitization, bringing in leadership, bringing in all stakeholders on a common data, moving to more real-time operations, like how a taxi market or e-commerce market is now doing, like a food delivery market, moving to real time. All of these are like common technologies. So that itself, there is a lot of value we can create before things like IoT, machine learning, AI comes into picture.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Salil, there is a couple of questions that I think has come for you. Mainly, they are asking, this is actually a very practical question. When you come to workplaces, yes, we can actually practice physical distancing. But when it comes to a workshop floor, how is that physical distancing part practiced?
The answer lies in the effort which we did, and more, in fact, the best way to actually show is to see it. It yourself, but I'm working on this same now, on the same. So people are at a distance and still doing the work together, and there is a barrier in between which safeguards them from any interaction, any kind of infection. And of course, there were certain measures which were taken while you enter the plant, while you move out to the plant, including the rest area, which had been designed in a different manner altogether. So there is, again, the theory of social distancing is at place. There are sufficient space being given to each other, including the area where they had to sit and eat. So everything was redesigned, and it is possible. In fact, we also had this concept in mind that it is very difficult. How would you actually work on a moving machine or a moving part or on a conveyor? But then if you really think about it, it is possible. 5 people fit an engine, 5 people together fit an engine on a vehicle. So it is a heavy component. But then you had to use technology to help out each and every individual there.
Yeah, right. Jaishankar, you would like to add on this? How is it happening at your end when you're talking of social distancing or physical distancing? Is that the only way option is to just change the whole structure, or what is it?
See, here on the social distancing part, there are challenges only in few areas where you have the canteen or the punching time. So we need to do a kind of a staggering in that. So that part we kind of adjusted the timings, right? The timing adjustment, and even in the workplace, if they are if you're having double masking, need to be done in some conditions where some person have to be together. If there is a motor which need to be lifted, you cannot do it by a single person, right? So there are certain areas where you are a little bit closer on some occasions, so you need to do double masking and then kind of do the activity and then separate yourself. So those are very few instances. We have to be very practical in today's scenario. We cannot be too fearful or anxious about what's going on. And on top of it, slightly I'm deviating, but still, vaccination for all is the leadership direction which has been given for the whole company, and that's something which is going to help us. So that's on the proactive front, and social distancing and nose mask is on the control front. And whatever, in case if somebody gets infected or something happens, how the HR and EHS provide support, remote support, availability of the necessities for them, for the families, that's another support. Plus, we keep changing every 2 months, I would say, depending on the situation. When there is a shortfall of oxygen, immediately we ensure that all factories should have oxygen concentrators, right? Small factory 2, large factory 4. And we just ensured that within a span of 1 to 2 weeks, it was available. Plus, connecting with the different service providers. It's a key thing. It's an ongoing stuff. And I think we have learned it today, right? And that's my view.
Okay, I'll take 2 more questions. This is for Shruti. Shruti, this is a very interesting question that has come in. Yes, how do we gauge the productivity when you're talking work from home versus work from office? So,
great idea. I honestly don't know how to directly answer that question, but I can say something which will probably answer that question nevertheless.
Okay.
In the last 12 months, let's say from April last year to March this year, all of our companies have done better than last year. Okay,
wow.
So which probably goes on to say that work from home has worked. Whether it is better or not, I honestly don't know. But I can also tell you that we have, as an organization, as a group, we have decided that even beyond the COVID times, we will have a remote working model, which will mean that there'll be a group of people. Of course, those people who are working on the plants, for example, a security guard has to be at work, right? A guy who's on the machine will have to be at the machine,
of course,
right?
yes.
Now, beyond those people, there will be the entire workforce will be eligible to work 50% of their time from remotely, right? Which simply means that, and that spreads in our project locations, our plants, everywhere. Wherever we are saying that a person is not directly working the machine or doing a work that is required at that site, you're eligible to work 50% from home, even after the COVID time. So obviously it goes on to say that, work from home hasn't really been that bad for us. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, before I go into the conclusion of this virtual discussion, yes, I would like to put down the takeaway points. Sangeeta, can you just do the honors of, what is the takeaway of the entire discussion that we have done so far?
If I were to just summarize it, I think all of us agreed that FM and moving out and giving the jobs to the FM for whom it is a core area is important. But having said that, we also agreed that that there's no running away from smart solutions and digital solutions. And I mean, this is going to be the way forward post-pandemic too. I mean, this, if I were to just summarize the whole topic, of course, this we said it in various forms. For example, we said that with all of this, our fixed cost, real estate maintenance cost becomes more variable in nature, etc. But fundamentally, it was about digitalization. It was about getting variable in nature. It was about moving towards an FM or an IFM model where we could let the experts handle the topic. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Would you like to add, Amit, a few more points to this?
Yeah, I think it was also about collaboration. I would foresee someone picking up from IFM and integrating service providers from automation, bringing it together as a portfolio to the customers, because customers are customers. They will be focusing on their core. So these activities can be brought together in a platform by the IFM service providers. And I think the other area which was touched really well by Supratik and Jay Shankar was on leadership. What kind of leadership is required? So I think the few words which came out were agile leadership, decision making, empathy. In these times, I think those were some of the key learnings.
Right. Thank you so much, panel members. This was a wonderful discussion, and there's a lot of takeaway for all the delegates who have joined us. And before I conclude, I would like to thank our partners, Sodexo India, and each of you, especially Salil, who he's still in the workplace and said, give me permission, I'll remove the mask only when I am going to speak here. Thank you so much. I think we all are putting up wonderful efforts, and thank you to the facility management companies who are making workplace safe. Thank you, and wish you all the very best. Keep safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.